Welcome to the Carousel of Happiness Podcast. I'm your host, Allie Wagner. This is a podcast about a carousel, but not just any carousel. This is a podcast about a 1910 Charles Looff-designed carousel. A carousel that after 3 fires, 1 windstorm, and a lightning strike still spins today, almost 115 years later, in a tiny mountain town in Colorado located 8,000 feet above sea level. This is a podcast about one man, not from Colorado, but from Texas, who while serving in the Vietnam War used a music box sent to him in a care package to drown out the horrors of war around him. This is a podcast about one man who in between firefights would hold that music box to his ear and listen. He'd listen and he'd dream. One day being away from it all, spinning on a carousel high in a mountain meadow. This is a podcast about that one man who, upon being wounded and returning home, chose to start his life in this mountain town and bring to life the carousel of his dreams. He single-handedly carved over 50 original and unique animals over the course of 26 years to bring his dream to life. This is a podcast about that tiny Colorado mountain town who stepped in and raised over $700,000 to keep the carousel and its story alive and preserved in their town. This is a podcast about a community of artists and metal workers and accountants and operators who have donated their time and expertise and energy to keep this carousel spinning. This is a podcast about the carousel's visitors. Over 80,000 last year alone. Tourists and locals alike who drive up windy mountain roads and survive snowstorms to arrive at this special place. This is a podcast about the carousel's riders who, upon visiting, are fundamentally changed in some way. Grieving parents find solace, grandparents find joy, wounded veterans find peace. And I'm your host, Allie Wagner. I am the outreach director for the Carousel of Happiness. It is my job and my passion to tell stories, because I believe stories are how human beings grow and learn and change. I believe that stories help us evolve into becoming kinder, more compassionate human beings. I believe that when we share stories or we listen to someone else's story, we're able to make sense of our own experience and in turn maybe make choices that feel better to ourselves and to others. I believe stories have the power to heal. You can expect plenty of stories on this podcast. Stories about how the carousel came to be, stories about the people who keep it spinning round and round, and even stories about the animals themselves. Did you know the Carousel of Happiness features over 50 distinctly unique hand-carved original animals, including an alpaca with ballet slippers and a flying pig with a saddle? This is true, and we'll tell you why later on the podcast. It is our hope that this show becomes a place where you can come to once a week, whether you visit us in person or not, to feel inspired, to feel happy. It is our hope that this podcast becomes a hub of positivity where joy and happiness are celebrated. The podcast launches this January, but we need your help right now. If you plan to listen to the show, please subscribe. You can also share this trailer with someone you think might be interested and want to listen. All of these things ensure that more people know about the podcast and have access to it. So thank you, thank you, thank you. Have you been to the Carousel of Happiness? Do you have a story about the carousel you'd love to share with us? We'd love to hear from you. Send us a message on Facebook or on Instagram, or you can email me directly at outreach@carouselofhappiness.org. You can check out the show notes for links. In the meantime, take care, be well, and don't delay joy. And we'll see you next time around.
I'll see you next time around.